Hello, welcome back to another Cosmic Campfire. Today, well, as you can see, I've got my new model set up. I'm still working some things about with it, trying to make sure it's set up properly. Might have to make a few changes again, but everything seems fine and functional. Um, Today we are covering a story on Cosmic Campfire that goes by many names. It has been 1999. It has been Mr. Spare's Cellar, and it has been Caledon Local 21. This one, I have it on a good recommendation that it might actually be a good one. I know I mostly read things that are kind of silly or bad, so I'm here's hoping I actually get a little bit creeped out today. I've got a bottle of Pepsi Max here next to me. So if I pause for a moment without really saying anything, I'm probably drinking some of my Pepsi. Why don't we pull up the story and begin? Here we go. There will be a link in the description if you want to read along without my stuff here getting in the way. The year is 1999. That sentence brings me back to my senior kindergarten class when I was 5 years old, where we used to read out the date on the blackboard every single day. The year 1999 exists as a stain in my mind. However, as a memory that will not go away no matter how I try to forget it. 1999 marks the year I lost my first tooth, my first time on a plane, and unfortunately, the early loss of my childhood innocence. That one memory refuses to be wiped. It's all started with that new or old TV. At that time, Pokemon was the latest fad to hit the school. Pokemon cards, games, stickers, and the most popular, the TV show. So of course, every time I came home from school, I would stay glued to the TV until Pokemon came on at 5. The only problem was that my dad watched the news at 5:30, and Pokemon episodes were back to back, which meant I had to miss an episode every day, something I whined on and on about. My dad got tired of hearing me complain every day. That must be why he went and bought another TV. My dad put the TV he bought in my room. Unfortunately, it was just an old small boob tube, with rabbit ears even. It also only had 20 channels available, not even including the channel Pokemon was on. I recall I didn't care though, I was just thrilled that I had my own TV in my room. After surfing through the channels, I came to the conclusion that only Channel 2 TVO Kids was worth watching, so I watched that for a while. It wasn't for another few months until I discovered Channel 21. One day in April, I was flipping through the channels, trying to see if Pokemon was on. I pressed Channel 21 into the remote, hoping there were more channels, and to my delight, there was. My dad was surprised too, but he let me watch it because it seemed to have kids programs on. The channel was called Caledon Local 21, and I later found out that it was indeed broadcasted from the town of Caledon, Ontario, a town very close to my city. The shows I saw in Caledon Local 21 looked poorly made, and I never understood what was going on in them half the time. However, as I grew up, every time I thought of that channel, I realised more and more how messed up the shows were, and I had to ask myself, what the fuck was I watching? Following is a list of shows and episodes I remember seeing in Caledon Local 21, and how I remember such detail even disturbs me, but I guess things like this stand out in your mind for a while. The channel only ran a few shows, probably because it was only operational between 4 and 9 PM. April 1999. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 12. Very sketchy name if you were to look at it nowadays. The show featured a guy wearing a bear mascot costume who would get a new visitor into his cellar every day. It was always a kid. The show was filmed with a camcorder, and not a very good one either. The police asked me a lot of questions about this show. This episode started with Mr. Bear sitting at a table, playing checkers by himself. He sat there playing for a bit, until there was a knock on the door. The camera was then looking up the stairs at his door, where there was another knock. Mr. Bear climbed the stairs and opened the door to reveal 2 young children. One was a boy about my age, the other was a girl who looked about 8. Mr. Bear danced in delight, and then started talking to the kids. I couldn't hear any of them that well, I remember. Mr. Bear then led the kids into the cellar, which is quite dark, only lit by a small oil lamp on the table. I can't really remember that much more, except him singing a song which I couldn't hear too well either, probably because of that large bear mask. The episode ended with them playing hide and seek, with the kids hiding in a closet and Mr. Bear counting. May 1999. Soup and Spoon. I don't think this was even a show, it was more of a special movie thing. All I know is I stopped watching Caledon Local 21 for a while, because I thought this show was too stupid, especially since Pokemon now came on between 4:30 and 5. I don't remember much of this, but it showed a can of soup and a spoon both attached to strings, swinging back and forth as if someone was holding them and dangling them in front of the camera. Interestingly enough, the show was shot in a basement which looked just like the one used in Mr. Bear's Cellar. Like I said, I can't remember much. The only thing I can remember clearly was the end. The entire thing was only about half an hour, and just included stuff I found stupid, such as the spoon chasing the soup around trying to eat him. The ending showed a table and about 7 kids sitting around it, each with a bowl of soup in front of them. They were sitting and looking at the camera, but with confused, almost frightened faces. The cameraman then held the can of soup in front of the kids and said, "Spoons ready!" And then I just stopped. July 1999. It was summer, and I hadn't watched Channel 21 for a while, until one day when I slept over at my friend's house and I decided to check it out again. My friend had gotten a TV in his room for his 6th birthday, so we stayed up very late. For us, 9:30 was very late, and watched TV. That's when I remembered Channel 21 and brought it up to my friend. We decided to see if it was on, and to our surprise it was. They must have changed the broadcasting time. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 23. This episode was entertaining for my friend and me, mainly because it had swearing. However, now when I think of this episode, I realize something was definitely wrong when it was filmed. The episode started with the camera on its side, while it was facing Mr. Bear, who was walking upstairs to the cellar door. The camera then blacked out for about a second, before fading in, back upright, and facing Mr. Bear. There was also another kid talking to him, but this kid looked about 11 or 12. He was talking to Mr. Bear for a while, but I couldn't hear well, again with a crappy camcorder, until the kid started raising his voice. Where was I? Raising his... Sorry. Sorry, I left Steam open momentarily, and I got stuck with a notification for some... It distracted me. Where was I? Raising his voice. The kid was saying how it was late and he and his sister had to go home. You could also hear more voices in the background. I remember Mr. Bear clearly saying, "Get the fuck out! You're not invited!" with a deep voice muffled by the bear mask. I remember my friend and I looking at each other and laughing at the mention of the forbidden F word. But the episode got weirder. Ed began climbing the stairs before turning around and saying how he was going to call the police. Mr. Bear began breaking into a run toward the kid, who started screaming and running as well. The camera then cut out, and that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned to static shortly after. August 1999. I didn't want to watch Channel 21 after that. In August, I grew more curious to see Mr. Bear's Cellar for some reason, though. The last episode I saw of Mr. Bear was weird and had swearing, which made me think the show was made for teenagers. Nonetheless, I flipped onto Channel 21 while my dad was busy. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 28. Apparently this episode had been playing the entire month of August. It was studied a lot by the police. The entire episode was just Mr. Bear sitting in a chair talking to the audience. "Hello, kids. Do you want to visit my cellar? If you do, please write me a letter at this address." The screen then switched to a white screen with multicolored letters reading the address, and that was what remained for the rest of the episode. This repeated for 5 hours, every day, until September came. And guess what I actually did? I sent Mr. Bear, or that sick bastard who portrayed him, a letter. I did it out of morbid curiosity. The dad was okay with it because he thought it was a legit kid show. But then again, he never saw any of what was on Channel 21. So I wrote a letter using my best writing possible. I think I just said how I wanted to meet Mr. Bear. So my dad sent the letter to the address Mr. Bear said on the show. It stayed on all day anyway for some reason. It took about a week to get the response, which I was surprised I did. I still have the letter I received on August 15th, 1999. The letter read, "Dear Elliot, thank you ever so much for your letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, and go fire camping in the middle of the woods. Come to my house at..." The police got out the address. "Caledon, Ontario, Canada. I look forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear. I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy because he actually took me to the house. And then that's when the police became involved. Those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids, the woods. That brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That psycho and his friends did some fucked up shit back then, and it seems he's trying to get in contact with me again. The entire police thing is coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it is happening again. Update November 14th, 2009. People have been emailing me asking what exactly happened in 1999. I will get to that. Those weird TV shows I was watching apparently were meant to attract kids to Mr. Bear's house, and what Mr. Bear did shocks the entire town. My dad actually drove me to Caledon along with the address Mr. Bear left on the letter. The house was in the outskirts of the town in the open farmland. I'll remember that house. It looked like an older farmhouse that had been built up in the early 1900s. Windows were all boarded up. The house looked in a state of disrepair. As we walked up to the house, I remember my dad checking the address over and over again, looking at the house in disbelief. And then the door opened. I expected Mr. Bear to be at the door, but I was surprised to see a police officer emerge from the creaking doorway. The officer began talking to my dad while I quickly asked if that was Mr. Bear's house. The officer's face cringed slightly and he muttered, "Oh God," or something like that. He started talking quietly to my dad so that I couldn't hear, although my dad told me to go to the car anyway, and then we just went home. My dad was quiet the whole way home. I felt something strange had happened. My dad never told me what happened for a while. I forgot about it anyway. Channel 21 no longer came on, and when I asked about it, my dad would no longer acknowledge its existence. I think it was when I was 13 that I learned the truth. I remembered Channel 21 one day and asked my dad about it. I guess he finally decided I should hear the truth. Caledon Local 21 was a local TV channel that ran from October 1997 to August 1999 in the Peel region of Ontario. The entire channel was made from a house in Caledon, the one I visited, and was run by a man who was not really known by anyone in the town. The channel was only available to older TVs because the signal was one only picked up by rabbit ears because of a weaker frequency. The man created all the shows on the channel, all of which were kids' shows. He was Mr. Bear. He was the mysterious cameraman. The real reason he created the channel was more disturbing than what was originally thought. As you might have already guessed, he kidnapped kids and held them in his cellar. But while most people thought he was a serial child molester, he really wanted to use the kids for another purpose. The day I arrived, the man had fled his house the night before, the day before the police went in for their investigation. I wasn't the only one who was watching. We're about to go into the next part of the blog posts, but give me a wee moment to have a little sippy sip of my drink. My invisible space Pepsi. Now, shall we continue? Update, December 2nd, 2009. Sorry for not answering any questions for so long. I hadn't accessed my email account for some time. Anyway, let me finally set things straight about what I know. Back in October, I visited the house previously owned by the man who ran Caledon Local 21. 2 women lived there, operating a daycare business. How ironic. Now, to answer the questions you guys emailed to me, who else watched Caledon Local 21? I know other people watched it for sure, including those kids who wound up in Mr. Bear's house. After some Google searches, I found a few people on the NeoSeeker forums. New people on the NeoSeeker forums who were discussing shows from Caledon Local 21. They talked about 2 shows I watched, but also another 2 shows I had never seen before. A user named I Am Real Life seemed to know all of the shows that were broadcasted on Channel 21. Here are the 2 I've never heard of. The Fallen Angel and Life. I Am Real Life described it as a fairly boring show about a guy rambling on and on in front of the camera about how we must please Satan and appease him before it is too late. And Paint with the Soul. I Am Real Life and another user, Siggy92, were discussing this show. They described it as a Blair Witch-like, as it consisted of the cameraman wandering around a forest at night doing nothing particularly interesting. I'll go looking for the conversation and see if I can get the link. Question: where is Mr. Bear, or the guy who wore the costume? Answer: if I did know, I would have said earlier. I have no idea where this guy is. If he's dead or alive, hopefully dead. When I see my dad's friend next time, I'll ask him about this. Maybe I can get a more definite answer? Question: what did Mr. Bear do to the children? Answer: this is by far the most common question I've been asked. I found this out in October as well, via my dad's friend who is a retired Caledon regional officer. Apparently, the man playing Mr. Bear took the kids out of the house and into the forest nearby. What he did there, police are not exactly sure how it happened, but 16 charred bodies of children between the ages of 4 to 13 were found in a 15 by 15 foot ditch deep within the forest. My dad's friend did not want to go into the exact details, but I'm seeing him next Thursday anyway, so maybe I can extort more information from him then. That's all I have for now. Thanks for keeping an interest in my blog. I will try to gather as much information as I can for my next post. I've actually been getting pretty interested in this myself. It should be my right to know what the hell happened. Update: January 14th, 2010. I'm sorry I haven't posted anything for a while. I kind of lost interest in this blog since I had a standstill by looking for more information about the identity of the owner of Caledon Local 21. However, a few weeks ago, I struck gold. I found some answers, surprisingly, from the father of a kid I used to babysit. He lives just across from my street and used to look after his kids when they were younger, so he doesn't currently have a job either. He used to live near the woods outside of Caledon and witnessed the owner's activities in the woods. His name is Anthony Polo. When he lived in the small bungalow outside the woods, he would often venture out to smoke a joint of marijuana or two before returning to his work as a woods craftsman. Polo described that he would sometimes hear voices of children coming from deeper in the woods, as well as a glowing light off in the distance. Polo told me these events started in late 1997. This is around the time that Caledon Local 21 began airing. He apparently became annoyed by this happening every once in a while and actually went to investigate. Polo then described what the scene looked like when he got there. There was a group of kids, he said around 13 to 17, of ages 5 to 12, gathered around a large fire pit with a burning fire. With them was a single adult. Polo talked to the man, noting his unusual unkempt appearance like a crack addict, as well as his constant twitching, and asked what he was doing out in the forest with children. The man said they were on a camping trip, something they did frequently. Polo, not suspecting anything, as Caledon has one of the lowest crime rates in Canada, simply left it at that and asked them to be quieter. Polo then paused for a while before telling me that they never became quieter. In fact, sometimes he heard loud chanting from the children in an unknown language. He didn't bother meeting with the man again, as he was moving anyway. I told Polo that the man was probably the owner of Caledon Local 21, but he doubted it, as he heard that the man was moving to Pickering by several other residents near the area. Here is what I know now. The man would take kids into the woods regularly for camping. The fire pit Polo described may be the hole the bodies of the children were found in. The children Polo saw are probably the ones found dead. The man moved to a city called Pickering, which is a smaller city east of Toronto. And I will discuss this with my dad's friend, the ex-cop, and see if this matches anything the police knew about the man. I also want to see if he has any other knowledge of what was aired on Caledon Local 21. Update: February 10th, 2010. Good news, guys. I talked to my dad's friend and he disclosed a lot of information for me. First, I asked if the police had any information on the man who ran Caledon Local 21. He replied that they've only had the same leads for years and never found a suspect. However, the Peel Regional Police do have some of the tapes found in the house that Caledon Local 21 was broadcasted from. He took me over so I could watch a few. Guess I haven't said much about him yet. My dad's friend is named Mitchell Wilson. Quite nice guy. Seems to understand my thirst for knowledge on what happened in the late 90s in that house. Feels it was wrong that my dad went so long without telling me much. He took me to the Davis Police Station, the largest station in Caledon and one of the largest within the Peel region itself. And each of the main stations around Peel have some of the tapes. I was able to watch all of the footage that the Davis Road station has, but I wasn't allowed to take any home for obvious reasons. Paint with the Soul, Episode 10, Garbage Thrown Away. Paint with the Soul was one of the shows that tie in real life and Saiji 92. I'm not sure if I'm not confident in how I pronounced that name before, because when I said it before, it was like a cigarette. Um, from this point on, I'm going to call them S92, so I don't have to worry about how how I'm meant to say the name. But I Am Real Life and S92 discussed on Neoseeker. I told the police about this, and they informed me that 12 episodes of the show were made and broadcasted between December 5th, 1997 and January 8th, 1998. Exactly as I Am Real Life and S92 described, the episode opened with the camera wandering around in the forest. It seemed to be during the evening, as the sun was setting. The cameraman walked along a path until he got to an area where there was a lot of garbage laying in the leaves. The camera looked around at the various wrappers, bottles, bags, and boxes, making sure each item got a few seconds of screen time. The camera then focused on a single area before the man spoke. I recalled he spoke in a very timid, quiet voice, and I swear I've heard it somewhere else, like on another Caledon Local 21 show. I could barely hear what he was saying, but he mainly talked about how humans are garbage, or something that had to do with saving ourselves by cleaning up the garbage, which us. It actually sounded really stupid, but a feeling of dread came over me. I mean, that forest was possibly where the bodies were found, right? Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 25. When the police administrator brought this tape in, I actually said, "Oh shit," and chuckled a bit out loud. Of course, I got stares from the staff, but Wilson explained to them about my little experience with Mr. Bear and how I still kept the letter he sent me. Like the previous episodes, this one included a guy wearing a bear mascot costume. The episode began with Mr. Bear waddling over to his cellar door with a bottle of orange juice in his paws. On the ground were 16 shot glasses and a small bottle with an unknown fluid. Mr. Bear poured an equal amount of orange juice into each glass before depositing as one drop from the smaller bottle into each of the glasses. Mr. Bear then went off camera. There were some minor sounds such as shuffling, and Mr. Bear emerged from behind the camera's location. Following him were 16 children, some as young as 4, others looked like they were almost teenagers. As the children entered, the administrator commented that this is the only episode that showed all 16 victims. The kids all looked rather content, except for this one who had visible bruises on his face, and unlike the other kids, he had a more fearful expression. He also looked about 11 to 12, which caused me to recognize him. He was the kid who had asked about his sister, and subsequently met an unknown fate at the end of episode 23, the one I watched in July 1999. When I told the administrator this, he confirmed it was the same kid. He was also featured in episode 24, which aired only once at 3 in the morning in July 1999, which the police have not found the tape of. Mr. Bear had broke into song, singing about citrus fruits and how good vitamin C was for you. I could barely hear the lyrics, muffled by the bear mask. The kids all drank their juice, the one from episode 23 doing so rather reluctantly, and the episode ended. After reviewing the tapes in possession of the Davis Road police station, I'm satisfied, but only temporarily. I still want to know the full story. The police just keep giving me the same crap about the creator of Caledon Local 21 being a fetishist paedophile, as well as an apparent cultist. I will sign off for now, get into university first, and get information later. Hopefully I'll get back to this blog as soon as possible. Update, May 8th, 2010. Last month, I finally got my G2 license. In Ontario, Canada, this allows you to drive a car by yourself and after 6 months bring some passengers. I, of course, took advantage of this and drove into Caledon for a little Sunday drive. As I haven't updated this blog in a while, I figured I might as well visit the house where the infamous channel of my childhood was located. The house looked different than when I last saw it in October. The place was no longer in use as a daycare and just sat there abandoned. However, it did have a for sale sign. Someone still owned it and wanted to get rid of it. The abandoned house drew fuzzy memories from my mind, mainly of the day my dad took me to visit Mr. Bear. A feeling of dread came upon me. What happened to the children while they were still living in that house? I walked up to the steps to the front door and peered through the window. Inside, I could see a nearly empty hallway with a few boxes at the end. Okay. At the end of the hallway, to the right, was an open doorway, presumably leading to the kitchen. To the left were two doors, both apparently leading to rooms visible through the windows outside. I wondered where the cellar entrance was located and whether it had been sealed up. I walked around to the back of the house and found my answer. Two wooden doors lying at an almost flat angle were padlocked shut. This had to lead to the cellar. Not wanting to hang around, you cannot imagine what was going through my mind at the time. I departed. Behind the house, the empty field continued on until it reached a dense forest that lined the horizon. I wondered if that was the forest where the bodies of the children were found. I thought to myself, fuck it, and proceeded to walk across the field, behind the house, into the forest. The forest was oddly quiet, save for the few periodic sounds of a woodpecker drilling into a distant tree. I cautiously made my way deeper into the woods, not really caring about the fact that I had no idea where I was going. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like there was something I had to find. I came to a thinner part of the woods and a few small houses in the distance. Hollow's house crossed my mind, and I wondered if one of these homes had belonged to him. I neared a small clearing in which I could see three adequately sized logs gathered around a black, charred area, showing a small fire had been lit there recently. Hey! Get the fuck out of our fort! Those words nearly gave me a heart attack. I turned to my left and saw two dark-clothed people running towards me. My initial thought was to run, however, as I came closer I saw they were really just kids in their early teens, possibly 13, 14, maybe 12. As they approached me, they realized my size as well. I'm 6'1", well, they could have been no bigger than 5'8". We said, get the fuck out. The larger one, who was wearing a Slipknot shirt, said half-heartedly. I stood my ground and shrugged. The shorter one, wearing a Metallica shirt, swung out a butterfly knife and held it in my direction. No, you wouldn't want to, I said in a deep, serious tone, trying to sound as badass as possible. I pulled out my cell phone. The two kids withdrew, the one in the Metallica shirt putting away the knife. Look, dude, we don't like people in our fort, so can you just go? The one in the Slipknot shirt said, obviously intimidated. I had no business in the forest anyway, so I uttered a simple fine and turned before I realized I had a great opportunity. Did either of you hear about a guy who murdered a bunch of kids in these woods years ago? I asked the kids. They looked at each other in confusion before the one wearing the Metallica shirt answered. Yeah, everyone knows about that guy. He said to me as if I were stupid. The kid in the Slipknot shirt continued. He still lives around here in the storm drain. My big brother's friend says he saw him in a bear costume once wandering around the forest at night. My instincts told me this was probably a lie, and the owner of Caledon Local 21 is probably long gone, only existing in folklore in the smaller isolated community. However, as a human, thought of the mysterious unknown sparks interest within. Where is the storm drain? I asked, just out of curiosity. I don't actually believe the kid's story. The kid in the Metallica shirt stared at me for a few moments, his eyes seemingly full of annoyance, yet curiosity for me. You're not from around here, are you? Why'd you even come here? I do admit I was slightly startled by the nature of the question. However, I figured I might as well explain why I was there in case people mistook my intentions. I told the two kids about my experience with the man and Caledon Local 21, and that I had come to maybe seek out some sort of closure, though even I wasn't exactly sure. Kids seemed familiar with the channel as they smiled and looked at each other when I mentioned it. They also became more understanding and gave me a detailed description of how to get to the storm drain. Shortly after, I decided to turn around the way I came and head back to the house, leaving the kids at their fort. But you're probably wondering why I left out such detail about what kids told me just now. It is because I'm choosing to conclude what I have gathered now. This is what the kids have told me. The storm drain lies ahead of the kids' fort, the same direction I was heading. The drain ends at a small river where excess water is drained out. Near here is a small playground which the kids told me is rarely used. The man supposedly lives in the large pipe that the rainwater drains out of. People have seen him, though always wearing a bear mask or the full-body bear costume. I do not believe this is true. I think it's myth made by the residents of Caledon. The story doesn't even seem plausible at all. Why did no one call the police? Didn't this guy look suspicious? And other questions like these leave the story invalid. I may visit the storm drain, not because I believe the story, but because I want an excuse to visit Caledon again. So this blog doesn't die. With no more tapes to watch, I don't know what to watch. I don't know what to talk about anymore. Thanks for continuing to support me and my blog. I know many are looking forward to more information about what happened in Caledon during the year 1999, and I will do my best to continue my research into the topic. Elliot, out. Update, October 7th, 2010. Wow, nearly 5 years since I last updated. I'm guessing everyone pretty much thinks I was dead, right? Thankfully I'm not. But in all my seriousness, I really have been busy these past few months. And a blog about something that could have killed me as a kid is a little low on my current priorities list. As of now, I'm living in Waterloo, Ontario, attending the University of Waterloo for computer engineering. As you can imagine, engineering is no walk in the park, so I nearly forgot about this blog. But I'm back! I remember to visit the storm drain the kids from Caledon Forest told me about. It was out in a clearing between the wooded areas nearby a marsh. Unfortunately, I found absolutely nothing. Save for a turtle that retreated into its built-in home when it saw me. I snapped some pics of the pipe, which I've posted as well. Also, let me tell you, it was not a storm drain like they said it was. What I saw was a simple pipe, possibly to channel the excess water from the marsh. When I returned from Caledon, however, I simply kept putting off uploading everything until I forgot all about my blog. It didn't seem important anymore. Please forgive me. It wasn't until only recently that I am now interested in my case again. On September 10th, I received an email from this email address, returntheb@hotmail.com. Funny, am I right? Well, it gets better. I'm going to copy paste the exact email this guy sent me. Dear Elliot, my dear boy, you see, this story may or may not be true, but it could happen. There are many slots for airtime. If you have money, you can have a public access TV channel. Some public access channels share airtime like EWTN, a religious channel based in Michigan, that shows Catholic-based programming, but during off-air hours have independent shows or blue screen. Cable networks have empty channels available for rent space. So the scenario of a pedo renting a channel on basic TV isn't far-fetched at all. However, public access TV is widely reviewed and can be terminated at any time. But those are the rules for the United States, not for Canada. So if this happened in the US, the person would be tracked and arrested I think that's meant to say immediately. Yes, this story could happen, but it is unlikely. 100 fuzzy hugs, Mr. Bear. Now, obviously, this letter is fake and sounds almost corrupted. But still, I would like to thank whoever sent it, though they could use some English lessons. Just reading this letter creeped me out, but because of it, I am now full of this new interest to continue my blog. I guess it's just funny, trying to pursue the mysteries I've always questioned. Now my roommate knows about all of this. He thought the letter was real, and actually seemed more scared than I was for a second. But then I shrugged it off, and so he did too. I mean, what are the chances of this being real? How would Mr. Bear know all about public access TV and about when I went to Cellar? I almost called. Have I been calling it Celadon, like the city from Pokemon, this entire time? Caledon on those occasions. More or less know my email or me, still be interested in his cellar. I'm going to send a reply to the email address. Wow, just looking at it, you can tell someone wanted to freak me out. Didn't really work though. Although, to whomever you are, thank you for sparking my interest back into the full matter. Maybe I can find out more about what happened to Mr. Bear. Hopefully, because although I don't buy that email, part of me still feels anxious. Thank you to all those who are still following me and have become avid fans. Believe me, I check back here often and listen to what you have to say. You're also why I'm choosing to continue this. Thanks, guys. Update, November 7th, 2010. Wow, can't believe this blog hasn't been deleted yet. I haven't checked it for so long. I have my reasons, and I'd rather not discuss them just yet. It's been a rather traumatic month for me. Some of you were right. I shouldn't have gone back to trying to relive the mysteries of my childhood, but I couldn't resist. It has been a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. Let's recap where I am right now with regards to the whole Mr. Bear incident. Return the B at Hotmail is no longer in use. Tried replying to the email but got no reply. Tried again a while back, still no response. I've actually moved up to Ottawa, capital of Canada, for those who don't know, for university. I haven't been back to Caledon, or back home in the Peel region for a while. I had my reasons for leaving, as you could guess why. I had to make a new email account, because people keep prank mailing me pretending to be Mr. Bear. Thanks a lot, guys. Not. Why have I ventured back to this blog? Mitchell Wilson, my dad's ex-cop friend, gave me a phone call on October 23rd about a tape that was found in a branch of the Brampton Public Library. Brampton's my hometown, in case you haven't picked up on that. He claims he isn't allowed to discuss the contents of the tape with me as it's still in evidence, but asked me to come check it out when I return home. That tape got the gears grinding, because we all know what was on the last tapes that I saw. I can only imagine what can be on it. I'm guessing it must have something to do with Caledon Local 21. Guess I just wanted to say I'm continuing this blog. Thank you everyone who still follows it. I don't know when my next entry will be, but when I see that tape, I'll write what I find. I don't know what to expect, but the idea of seeing another tape has got me interested in this whole mystery all over again. Elliot. Update, January 21st, 2011. The end of 2010 into the new year was dreadfully long for me. University has been giving me the usual sleepless nights since I transferred to Ottawa, which is the place to party. Sarcasm. But now I'm back home with my dad in Brampton, the town I grew up in. I got home on the 18th of December and have been visiting with friends and family, or at least that's what I would rather have done. Now that festive holiday cheer I usually have at this time of the month is absent. But as the hundreds of emails and comments I got, yes, I did see the tapes that my dad's friend promised to show me. These tapes, however, act as a curse. I want to know more, yet I want to forget everything. I couldn't help it. I needed to see those tapes. Not only for myself, but for all of you guys who are just as intrigued as I am by that ominous man in the bear suit from my past. However, after viewing all those tapes, I feel that pit of dread deep inside me once again. And that feeling where I know that all those kids in those videos are dead, and that I could have been one of those kids. Humanity, and that humanity is a dark, dark place. If you haven't skipped this paragraph for the juicier details below, thank you for listening to my rambling. On January 1st, I called Mitchell Wilson and asked if there was a time I could come back to view the tapes. Things were slow at the station because of a snowstorm and said I could come down any time that day. Tapes were at a branch not too far from me, where I braved the slushy roads and terrible Brampton drivers and made my way to the Peel Regional Police Station at the Bramley City Centre. I met Wilson at the front desk, where he then led me up to the second floor and into a small office. He instructed me to have a seat and wait, while he went and got the tapes. Before leaving the office, he turned to me and said, "I know you're curious, but are you sure you want to do this?" Of course I did, or at least thought so. Besides, Wilson's friend had pulled a lot of strings to get me in there, and I didn't want to waste the opportunity. This particular station had 2 tapes on hand. I was only able to watch a few minutes of footage, however, because the second tape was apparently too damaged to be played on a VCR. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 30. Mr. Bear never ceases to disturb me, especially after what almost happened when I was younger. This episode took place outside in the forest at dusk, making it hard to see, slightly hard to see, especially considering the quality of the film, which was a trademark. Considering a trademark of anything from Caledon Local 21. The episode started with the camera being held in the paws of Mr. Bear, pointing it at himself. That bear mask, it looked more sinister in the shadows of the trees. The unmistakable muffled voice spoke up. "Hello, children. Today I will be doing a wonderful thing for my friends. I will be delivering them to a faraway land where they will surely be happy." Mr. Bear turned the camera around to show an ATV with an attached trailer. What stood out most is that the trailer contained 7 motionless children laying side by side. "This here is the first load, but more will be on their way soon." Mr. Bear turned around. Excuse me, sorry. Mr. Bear turned around and pointed the camera at a large burlap tarp spread on the ground. He picked up the tarp, revealing a large hole that must have been at least 12 feet deep and maybe 15 feet wide. The rest of the episode consisted of Mr. Bear taking each kid and dropping them into the hole. I asked Wilson if they were dead, to which he shook his head and replied, "Not yet." Soon all the kids were in the pit. Some were in awkward positions due to being tossed in, but they remained unconscious. "The vitamin C will surely help these children on the great journey that awaits them," Mr. Bear mentioned as he panned the camera towards multiple bottles of gasoline beside a bush. The camera zoomed into the bottles as Mr. Bear hummed before the episode ended. Wilson revealed to me that these were 7 of the 16 victims found burnt to a crisp. Gasoline is what the man playing Mr. Bear used to light them on fire. A fire pit full of burning children. Who the fuck would do that? That feeling of dread fed me once again when I realized I could have been one of those kids. Also then explained to me that he had previously lied. The other tape, confiscated by the Bramley police branch, did indeed work and contained the filming of the actual burning. However, he felt that I wouldn't be able to handle the disturbing and graphic nature of the episode, and you know what? Maybe I can't. I don't even want to see it. I'm satisfied for now, but I just need time to get myself together. Thing is, the man who ran Caledon Local 21 still out there. More to come soon. Elliot. INRI. Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Elliot. Elliot was a clever boy who loved playing with his friends. One day he watched a lovely television show about a bear and his children friends. Children loved helping each other as good children should, but they also loved the bear. The bear loved the children since the children were so good at helping him and the fallen angel. The children and the bear wanted to play together forever with the help of their angel friend. But the fallen angel needed even more help, so the children had to give the ultimate sacrifice. Because that's what friends do, Elliot. They help each other. Help us, Elliot. Burn with us. Elliot. I want you, Elliot. He wants you, Elliot. Come back to my cellar. Pretty please, with sugar and icing on top. Mr. B. INRI. Update. April 5th, 2011. I wanted to update more. I truly did. However, certain circumstances turned me off the whole Caledon Local 21 thing. I've since then had hundreds of emails about my blog and was even in contact with a magazine about my story. But now is the time to come clean to everyone. Where have I been for an entire year? The story of Pandora's box is true, and I opened it. I opened it when I watched the second tape in possession of the Bramley police branch. The other subject I'd like to address is the number of joke or fake emails I've been getting from people claiming to be Mr. Bear. Let's start with the second tape, as that's what traumatized me into stopping my search temporarily. After a few weeks of playing silent, I decided to ask Mitchell Wilson if I could view that infamous second tape he had talked about. I don't know why. I just felt that viewing the tape would give me some closure. Wilson was reluctant to show me, but I was persistent. He gave me an offer. If I was still interested by the time I turned 20, he would show me the tape. Not being able to do much else, I just played the waiting game. By the time my 20th birthday rolled around, I was definitely still interested in viewing the tape. I gave Wilson a call, during which he admitted that he'd hoped I would forget about asking him again, but I was not taking no for an answer. You don't really need to see it, he kept telling me, but I did need to see it. I had to at this point. Sure enough, he invited me to the Bramley branch one Monday afternoon. Having watched every Saw film and a video of Animal Slaughterhouse in my ethics class, I was sure I could handle what the tape was going to throw at me. How naive I was. Mr. Bear's Cellar, episode 31. When Wilson went to collect the tape from evidence, the officer in charge of the evidence room shook his head at me, his face saying, "What are you doing?" Wilson explained that this tape includes the last known episode of Mr. Bear's Cellar. I rightfully assumed that I would be seeing the fate of the children, and began to feel a sense of dread. The episode opened inside a forest, the usual one from the previous episodes. This fact took me a while to realize because it was night. The trees and leaves just looked like shapes dancing in the darkness. A faint glow of light was present on the right side of the screen. There wasn't any apparent audio. It appeared to be a windy night, but the trees didn't make any noise. Slowly, the camera began to pan towards the glow, revealing smoke rising from a hole, with the tips of flames peeking over the top. Wilson paused it at this point. "Are you sure you want to see this?" he asked me. I insisted on it, even though a voice in my head was telling me not to. The video continued. The cameraman moved towards the hole, showing a pit of fire. This is the hole I saw in the previous episode. Only this time it was filled with shapes. I could see shapes moving around, fluttering, flailing, some motionless. I knew perfectly well what they were. The camera began to adjust to the light and burning flesh. Red, black, a blur of surreal movement and colors. I wish I could forget what I saw, but you can't forget a scene like this. This was not a horror movie, this was reality. Human beings were being killed in a horrifying way, a fate that I could have potentially met. The video suddenly cut to dawn. The camera was now positioned further away from the hole. Fire was out, but smoke still rising up. A figure was up ahead. I recognized it right away. The Mr. Bear suit was laid out on the ground, empty. It looked just as unnerving. The suit was laid out in the shape of a cross, and the cameraman did a lap around it. treating it like a treasured artifact. Placed at the head of the suit, the sign, in bold red letters INRI was printed. The cameraman moved to the end of the suit, zooming into the bear's face, and the episode ended. I was speechless. It was like a dream. You can find a lot of terrible things on the internet, but I had never seen anything like this. Wilson asked if I was okay, and I replied with a shaky yes. I assured him as we left that I was fine and the video had given me some closure over the whole incident. He didn't seem too confident in me, but he left it at that. He was right though. I had nightmares for weeks. I gave up. Didn't care about the whole thing anymore. A sick man burned a bunch of kids alive, attracting them with a fake kids TV channel. I could have been one of the victims, yet I'm still here. I suppose I should have been grateful, but I feel guilty. Am I still here only by pure luck? 10 months later, I'm back, but now I need to address something else. My email has been flooded with messages. Some people ask for more details, some ask if I can upload the tapes. Some people email me claiming to be Mr. Bear. First, I can't get the tapes uploaded as they're A, in police possession as evidence, and B, I have no idea how to transfer a VHS to a computer. As for people pretending to be Mr. Bear, you're not fooling me. When you have dozens of people pretending to be the same person, it doesn't work. I've even seen a fake Caledon Local 21 YouTube channel, which is cute but still not real. Even more annoying is the fact that someone hacked up my account just to put up some demented poem about me on this blog. I'll leave it in the entry above this one just to show you guys. I have contacted my webmaster about the entry. I was told it was posted on Halloween. Oh, it's spooky. Attached to the email, paintedwithb@aol.com, which I assume is another joke email. I'm over episode 31 now. The images of what I saw will stick me for a while, but well, I want to do one last hurrah. I will get in contact with Mitchell Wilson and hopefully get set up with tapes in the branches of the possession of the other Peel police branches. I'll try to update you guys as soon as I can. I'm sure this won't take so long again. Thank you to everyone who still reads this. Elliot. And that's the end of the story as far as I could find on the site I'm reading it on. This is the upload that the TV Tropes page linked to, so I assume this is the official version of the story. Because I remember once hearing that someone had re-uploaded this on sites with like their own fake extra parts added in. So I don't know if there's anything missing. I don't know if this is all there is. I don't know if there is like a continuation that doesn't exist, but quite honestly, I really enjoyed this. Obviously, yeah, there were some pretty spooky stuff. I like that yes, it was about like a cultist guy, but there was no actual indication that any of the stuff he was talking about, he was killing these kids over, was real, which I think really good. I think the story would have become instantly much less compelling if there was more in the story that could indicate the guy actually was serving some real like demon like Satan or whatever. So but yeah, I found it pretty gripping. I very much enjoyed this. I would love to read recommendations for something a bit more serious like this was, because I know that my spooky stuff readings have mostly been either joke stories, like about video games, or both. So, yeah, if there's further recommendations for other spooky old internet stories, I would love for you guys to leave recommendations down in my comments. Yeah, I'm not sure what else there is to say. Give me a moment. 1999 TV Ropes. Okay, so I've loaded up the Alright, so obviously I've not got it here, but just while we're here, hanging out, I'm looking at the TV Tropes page for the story. Yeah, yeah, there's not. Yeah, this is the story, the page that it links to. Let's have a look at the trivia. After it became known to the there's trivia. Keep circulating tapes. After it became known to the creepypasta community in mid to late 2018 that the story, at least the most popular version of it, contained several instances of plagiarism, author copyright claimed any entries of the story on various creepypasta websites, several YouTube readings in multiple languages, fansite entries, and even some comments on Reddit mentioning it. Since then, finding this version of the story has been proven to be extremely difficult. Orwellian Record. The story got reposted to other creepypasta related sites by a user named Giant Engineer. They added in new material that wasn't in the original story, including a parody of the kids' show Ubi and 2 episodes of Paint with the Soul, similar to videos with Alan tutorial that ironically led to the original author getting rid of plagiarism. But there's a note on this one. That's what the author claimed, at least. Some critics, however, believe the author and Giant Engineer are the same person and the author was lying to save face. One of the main pieces of evidence these critics bring up is the fact that the version story posted on the author's blog, which was supposedly plagiarism free, still contained one of the aforementioned Paint of the Soul episodes as late as 2019. It was only removed a few days after a YouTuber named Slime Beast posted a video showing this. Apparently the YouTube channel Fleshly Canal has a character rap battle video of Mr. Bear against Freddy Fazbear, which is in the trivia section here. I don't know if that's accurate. All right, well, that was interesting. I don't know what that kids show that the other version of the story reference is, and I'm not going to dive down a rabbit hole right now. But thank you all for coming. Thank you all for listening. Again, if you have any recommendations for these spooky internet horror things I could read, please leave them in the comments. Thank you. Happy Time Zone.